to A Well-Designed Business. My name is LuAnn, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today's show features rising designer Amanda Hamilton. Amanda has over 15 years experience. She also has her bachelor's degree in applied interior design from Mount Royal University. She has earned her status as a licensed interior designer through the National Council for Design Qualifications, and she is a leadership in energy and environmental design accredited professional. Dedicated to her career and to the development of other young women, Amanda mentors through the Harry G. Schaefer Mentorship Program, and she's also mentored for the Women in Leadership and the National Council of Interior Design Education. She is the current chair for the World of Choices Committee, also for the Junior Achievement of Southern Alberta, which focuses on career mentoring for young women. Amanda was the recipient of the 2012 Mount Royal University Horizon Award, which recognizes the outstanding achievements of alumni early in their careers. In 2016, Amanda launched a travel scholarship through her alma mater to promote design exploration. And at the risk of making the rest of us feel like we're all sitting on our laurels here, Amanda was also named one of the 20 most compelling Calgarians by the Calgary Herald for 2018, and in 2017 she was awarded the top 40 under 40 by the Calgary edition of Avenue magazine, and she received the Silver Stevie Award for Female Entrepreneur of Canada. And there's a little more. Her design studio was awarded Best in Calgary in the interior design category and received the Ones to Watch Award by Western Living magazine. That's pretty incredible, all right? I don't often read all the way through somebody's list of awards like that. But I did this time because I want to share with you, I was impressed with the type of awards that these are, and also in contrast to relatively how young Amanda is. And so what I want you to do today is I want you to think about all of this while you listen to Amanda talk, and you will see and hear how it makes sense when you hear how driven and focused, and when you hear most certainly what a tremendous businesswoman she is first and interior designer second, because this is truly the secret sauce to success, and I am 100% positive about that. All right? So before I introduce you to Amanda, let me ask you, have you opened a trade account at Kravet? Do you know that Kravet has absolutely no minimums? You can order one sofa, one rug, 1 yard of fabric, one lamp. No minimum opening order and no minimum yearly orders, okay? After you open your trade account at Kravet.com, please be sure to use the code AWDB10 at checkout, and you can get 10% off any one Kravet fabric, wallpaper, or trim order, all right? Just in time for the holidays. Specify a product for your next project and save 10% at checkout with the code AWDB10. All righty, let's meet Amanda. Hi, Amanda. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hello, LuAnn. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Amanda, today we are going to talk about a couple of different things in your business that I'm anxious to take apart. First of all, you are in the field of design for 15 years and you've got your business for 10. And what I've learned is in that time that you have grown the business up to a certain level of employees, you've scaled it back, and now you're sort of in scaling back up mode. That's one thing that I've learned. The other thing that I've learned is that unlike many interior designers, you proclaim to the world that you do residential custom homes, you do multifamily development homes, you do renovations, you do hospitality, you do retail, you do health and wellness. And so I want to pick into that a little bit. And then the final thing is I want to make sure that we talk about Pallet. And so Pallet Archives. So let's start with building a firm up. When you think back to, starting out, whether you started out with yourself or one assistant, take us through, because we often have a conversation with someone with your level of experience where they're at. And a lot of times we skip the conversation on the climb up. So talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you remember when you first started to make decisions to build the firm and take on employees.
I love it. We're going to dig in.
Yes, we are.
So I sometimes call myself the sort of accidental entrepreneur. I started moonlighting for 2 years before I started my company. And I'm not sure that was something I'd ever planned. I actually had a client on the side who really sort of pushed me to do it. And what sort of happened at that time was a little sort of serendipitous. The market here in Calgary was growing. There was a need for interior designers, but there wasn't, the market wasn't saturated. So I really came in as that sort of like young, hungry entrepreneur starting a business. And I just ended up getting so much work and really started making a name for myself quickly. So hiring just became the result of needing to keep up with the amount of work that I did. But, throughout the course of the last 10 years, we have scaled up, scaled down, scaled up, scaled down, and sort of we're in this scaling up phase right now. And, I think like many business owners, you get a lot of business, you grow maybe a little bit too quickly, you don't have the processes in place. And at about year 5 or 6, I was sitting, I think, at about 8 employees, and I probably ended up having to let go, say, 5 of them within a couple weeks' time. And I think it's because I had sort of just rested on the fact that we really didn't try that hard to get jobs. They just came to us, and I lost sight of the strategy in the business.
Okay.
So that was sort of the first time. And then actually just recently, I would say Q3 and Q4 of 2017, the trickle down effect of the recession really hit our company. But what's kind of crazy about that is we still remained busy. I was able to not let anybody go. And we've actually doubled our numbers since that year, which is really fantastic. So you kind of just get used to this ebb and flow of the business changing, and then you figure out how to work with it.
Well, and to your point, I agree 110%. The first time you experience an economic downturn as a business owner, often you're taken by surprise and you make your adjustments too late, and you end up doing like you did, having to let 5 out of 8 employees go. But then you smarten up a little bit the next time, right?
Yeah, you make your decisions differently. And I guess one thing I didn't mention is I actually started my business in the middle of the recession. So
also helpful, actually.
Yeah, it was actually fantastic. And I had a cushy job at what would be still considered one of the best firms in the city. And people thought I was crazy for leaving. Like, I had no savings, no business experience, but, a little bit of grit and some drive and some of my own clients, that just sort of took off, and the timing was perfect.
Yeah. And well, it's not everybody, any business that launches in a recession is going to succeed, but there's no guarantee any business succeeds no matter when it launches. Yeah. But the recession is sometimes it is a good time because it's a little slower. You get your feet wet. It's not, coming at you. And you also are consistently, working to bring in the next project. You know what I mean? So, because it's not just handed to you and given to you. So take us think about you're getting ready to scale up again. Can you think of anything that when the first times that you hired, the first time where you were just, I'm busy, I'm adding people, and I woke up 5 years later and I had 8 people on staff. What were some of the thinking and the things that you did then that now you're saying, yeah, that was a little foolhardy, or that I didn't even think through, and now this is the way I approach it?
Yeah, I mean, I think early on I had this idea that, you look at somebody's resume, you meet with them once, and sort of if the resume and the portfolio look good, that that's a really good candidate. Now, to be honest, I almost pay no attention to what's on that resume because what I've learned is that it's more of a personality type and
Mm.
somebody who's eager to learn, eager to be challenged, who likes to work hard, and who's going to fit in well with our company culture is actually more important. I can teach a lot of things to a junior designer.
Mm.
And I don't know that I approached it that way before because to be fair, I mean, I was still a junior myself. I had
Right.
been out of university for 3 years when I started my company,
Mm.
so what business did I have really trying to figure out who to hire? Whereas now I'm much more confident. One of the biggest things that I look for now in a designer is their ability to take a project from start to finish, so from concept to completion. And one of the biggest things is confidence. If
Mm.
I'm going to put a designer in front of a client, the client is coming to us for our expertise. The designer's got to be able to justify, their decisions on why we're doing something, why we're picking something, and be able to, work with a team that's going to hold them accountable for what they said they were going to do.
Hmm. It's true because the synergy on a team is
Hmm.
really, it does outweigh, it trumps whether or not they can put together a beautiful design or they can put together a brief in a law firm, right? It's, you have to
Yes.
be able to see the vision, buy into the vision, have the same share goals as a team, and
Hmm.
work together, and complementary personalities and complementary skill sets. Now that you have a design team of 4 designers under
Hmm.
you, do you find that in addition to the personality component of it, do you find that maybe one is stronger in retail design, one is stronger in residential, or again, that's just secondary and you don't even care, and once everybody gets there, they just do good work? How do you feel about that?
I definitely recognize and play to the strengths of the designers in the studio because I think that's just a smart move as it relates to the client.
Mm.
If a client comes to us and is doing, say, no construction but a furniture and styling project, well, I'm going to put them with the designer that I think is the strongest.
Mm.
With that said, though, I think it's really, really important that all designers get shared experience. So we can't totally say give all the styling and furniture projects to one person because at the end, the other interior designers, don't excel then in those areas. So they've got to be able to get their feet wet. But personality wise, certainly, I mean, we've got some people in our office that are a little bit more technical and sort of organized and sort of strategic about how they approach things. And then we have other designers that are a little bit more organic. They sort of fly by the seat of their pants a little bit. And so we sort of try to pair them up with clients that I think are going to be a really good fit for them. Again, just to make sure that that experience for the client is as best as it can be.
Right. And
Yeah.
because we didn't say at the beginning, but the way your firm has evolved at this point is that you're the rainmaker. You're the one that has probably the person that has attracted and drawn a potential client to your firm. You're taking
Yeah.
those initial meetings, but you are deciding very early on which designer that you are anticipating is going to take this project if you get it. And so you're including them in those meetings. And once the thing is signed on the dotted line, then your designer runs with that project. You have oversight, you have communication,
Yeah.
but you're empowering each of these 4 women to run a design project. That they're not a junior
Yeah.
to you in that moment.
I changed my sort of mentorship or leadership style a couple of years ago after I got some feedback from one of my team members who's still with me. She's been with me for 5 years now. And I really look at my leadership style as sort of bottom up. I am here to serve my team and to mentor them. And ultimately, if they end up leaving the studio, which I hope they don't, but if they do, I want them to go out into the design community being intelligent, sophisticated, thoughtful about all of the decisions that they're making. So I think that's really changed the dynamic in the studio is like you said, empowering them and having them understand that I'm actually here to support them. It's not the other way around. That's definitely not how I run the business.
And what was that feedback? How did that employee express the sentiment
Yeah.
to you that made you think twice?
Yeah, so I do have high expectations. I come from a family of academics. I grew up in a family of teachers and principals. I have very high expectations of myself, and I have high expectations of my team. And one of her name's Rochelle. She said to me, I don't personally need to, hear feedback as much, and I don't need you to necessarily tell me that I'm doing a good job all the time, but other people in the studio do. So that was part of it, is understanding that I'm really there to support and mentor them, not to be a dictator. And then I think the other part is, and you might also have this as a strong female leader, is recognizing how much our mood and our energy affects other people. So
Yeah.
I noticed that when I came into the office, if I was in a bad mood, it completely affected my whole team. And so I sort of started some rituals and habits to put myself in a better state when I'm having a rough day, and how I approach my team when I come into the office, so that they understand that I'm here for them. And those rituals have been like, they're weird and fantastic, but they work.
I might need a couple.
Um,
I'm not kidding.
so one of the weird things that I do is I hug every single person on my team every single morning. It's the first thing I do when I come in. I
Ah.
individually hug them all. They do not hug each other. I hug them. It's sort of selfish, but it makes it, there's a huge, it humanizes our relationship. Like,
Yeah.
I'm having a bad day, I'm holding you. You might be having a bad day, so we're hugging, and it's just, I think it humanizes the experience, and does create a bit of a sense of family.
That's interesting.
And
And
weird,
yes, and
like,
weird, right? And when you first went to do it, did some of them look at you like, "What are you doing, lady?" Like,
what's sort of interesting is, now if I don't do it, they'll come into my office and they'll be like, I
I
didn't
didn't
get
get
my
my
hug
hug.
this morning. But it's also like, I can feel their energy that day. And what's been interesting is there's some people in our office who are like kind of crappy huggers, but they've become better huggers, because I'm like, I am forcing you into this touch, this
That's right.
feeling. Yeah.
That's right. Well, it's so true. It is the actual the exact epitome of the expression, you teach people how to treat you, right?
Yes.
And so you're teaching them, this is how we hug. We're going to do it. It's going to end up being good for you right now. It might not feel so, right. It might feel weird, but eventually you're going to get better at it, and that's a cool thing.
And
That's interesting.
I kind of like it even with our clients. Like, I'll do a handshake if it's the first time I've met a client.
Mm,
But if I have had a banter back and forth on an email and really great phone calls and a really great meeting, it always to me feels impersonal to then finish a meeting with a handshake. Like, we just talked about your kids and what kind of
yes.
toilet you want, and
Right.
the struggles you have in your marriage. I'm gonna hug you now. I'm not gonna give you sort of a cold handshake.
Right, right. Well, and it's funny because, of course, I have the same with my clients. I often will have the same feeling. We've just, as
Yeah.
exactly as you said, we've just sat there for an hour, hour and a half, and we started talking about draperies, and somehow we were talking about how her daughter was going through chemotherapy when she was 17, and she's 27, and all of a sudden there's a scare, and we're like, blah, you know what I mean? But I can't say that I've ever walked in and hugged all my employees on,
You might try it now.
however, it's interesting because you're exactly right. And if anybody listening does not hear that you as the leader are affecting the people around you with your moods,
Mm.
it is so true. And it's funny because I learned this lesson. At one time we had Kim and Ann working for us. So Kim is still with me, but
Mhm.
Ann moved away. And the thing was, Mondays are a tough day for me.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't mean to say that they're harder for me than anybody else, but I have generally spent the weekend working a good part of the weekend, and it takes me a few hours every Monday to get over the fact that I didn't
That you're
come
back
to.
at work already.
Well, not only that I'm back at work, but that I'm not back at work with a clean slate. It's
Yes.
like because there will be a point at the weekend where I'll be like, you know what? It's enough. It's enough. You're done. Put this away. Whether it's 2 o'clock Sunday or 10 o'clock Sunday, whatever it is, I will ultimately say the sentence, stop. But then what happens is that first 45 minutes at work on Monday, I'll be like, oh, right, because you couldn't have done that one more thing. So this is in front of your face. And by the way, you didn't even remember that you stopped before you did this thing. And, my brain just has a spin out,
I know.
And what happened was Kim called me out on it. Kim said what happened was, I don't remember, but what I remember is a significant moment. I remember her one moment, one day, and I'm not a yeller, I'm not a screamer, I'm not any of those crazy things. I'm not going to yell and be disrespectful, but my own internal. And at one point, something happened. And it took things up to a notch. Maybe a phone call came in and I just looked at her and she looked at me and she goes, yeah, and on the Monday when it's already hard. And I just was like, huh? And she goes, well, we just know Mondays just aren't your day for at least till 11:30. And I was like, whoa, you're an idiot, LuAnn. Yeah. Like I was like, you're laying that on her. You know what I mean? And she's took it each week is my point,
Yeah.
which wasn't good. I was a blind leader at that moment.
Now I'm going to call you out because I'm like, LuAnn, you better not still be working on the weekends.
Yeah. You got a little big yell lady from all the way from Canada.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just, it is what it is. I'm working on efficiencies and I've now built, what it is, the podcast is a startup. So at that point I was working on weekends with Window Works and training Kim. And then I got her to the point of training, and then I decided to start a whole nother business, which is a podcast.
Well, that's what we do. And I think the thing is I've never considered myself a workaholic, and I definitely make time for myself for sure. My time is so precious and I respect it so much. But when you love what you do so much, I would just rather do that than say watch a movie or whatever it is that other people do. I have no idea.
I know. And not only do I love it so much that I would rather do it, but if I'm going to stop doing it and do something that's second place, and then I still have to face that Monday morning feeling, I'm like, what did you stop for? But it's not the way to be. And I'm getting better in the last month. This summer was a come to Jesus summer for me. And so I'm roping it in a little bit more. And as I said, hired and so forth. But anyway, that's a great observation that, this woman, Rochelle, said to you, look, some people need a little high five every once in a while. You're zeroed in here and you're doing what you're doing and not necessarily looking up. And I have to say, that's not my affliction. I always am the high five girl, but I saw myself in that, the mood can affect the world, right? And it is uncomfortable. And it's funny because I think as leaders, I'm only going to continue down this in case anybody is like seeing themselves in this conversation, because as the leader of your company, you want to think, it doesn't matter. They know I'm not mad at them. I'm just frustrated at whatever I'm experiencing. But it does matter, and it does trickle down, and it does make them all feel like, okay. And even if you're not the kind of person that explodes, they're never worried I'm going to explode. But they love you. They like you. You're their boss.
Yeah.
They don't want you unhappy.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to know if they feel like they're somehow responsible for it, right? If we get a customer complaint, I mean, ultimately I'm not the lead on that project. Another designer is. And so they do feel bad if they see me, stuck on a phone call for 2 hours with an upset client. It's hard, it's hard not to have that transfer over.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So I love these lessons here. And so now, as you go to scale up again, what are you have 7 employees now. You're actually adding more to that, or this is the top of the scale for this moment in time?
This number has always been a challenge for me. It's the number that we start dealing with process issues, where I find we get more, complaints from customers. And so right now I'm going through the process of going, who are the types of people I need on a team? Where are the gaps and where are the bottlenecks? And we actually brainstormed these things together as a team. And we also brainstormed what each individual person loves doing, what they want to nurture, and then kind of gathered all of those things that nobody wants to do, or that we don't have technical skill. And the biggest thing that I found right now is that I need a, senior designer or a partner to sort of bridge the gap between my experience of 15 years and the next designer who only has about 5 years. I mean, as you know, there's a lot to learn in this industry. And because I was freelancing and moonlighting and taking on a lot of projects, I probably have more experience than the average designer based on years, simply because of the workload that I have at any given time. And so right now, I think it's finding that person that can kind of jump into that mentorship role and be in the office more often to be with the team and assist them, so that I can spend more time on the strategy and the business development, which is sort of my strength and something that I've come into. I mean, I used to say I'm an interior designer, and then I really hated the word entrepreneur. It was like a dirty word for me. And so I sit comfortably with calling myself a creative entrepreneur, right?
Okay.
So
why did it bother you? That's so weird, because I only know you 25 minutes, and I already wrote I'm going to tell you what I already wrote. I already wrote great business owner in my notes, because 6 months from now, I'm going to look for people to put on a panel in High Point, and I go to my notebook.
Hey, and I might go to High Point this October.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, so I'm surprised that you bristle at the moniker entrepreneur. What's the deal with that?
I love this. We're really getting into this.
Yeah.
So I think most people would look at me and say, I'm really confident, I'm tenacious, I'm extroverted. But like everyone else, I have my own insecurities. And I think that they're just these like sort of self-limiting beliefs that I have. It's sort of like, I don't come from a family of business owners. I barely knew how to pay an NMAX bill when I was in university. Like a lot of these things were street smarts that I had to teach myself. And I think sometimes I find myself questioning it all about whether or not I have any business to be making these decisions or advising other people. And because I think my expectations are so high for myself, I don't often sit in all of the accomplishments and all of the great things that we've achieved. It's always sort of like on to the next, maybe. So it's something that I'm sort of personally, still working on as a business leader.
That's interesting. I hear you, but looking outside in, that's you stop it. There's like 80 press mentions. You're leading a big team. You're clearly a smart lady, and it's just in between your ears. But I hear you already know that it's in between your ears.
I do, and I think we all have those areas where we question where we're at. And I think, a lot of it has to do sometimes with how your business is doing at that time, right? Like, we have, as you know, weeks that are fantastic, months that are fantastic. And then, like you said earlier, it's like the Monday. It's like, could anything else go wrong this week, this month? Like,
it's so true.
It gets easier though. It gets easier at this point now, practicing for 15 years. I do have to say, people are like, how do you deal with stress? I'm like, it's not that the stress has gone away. It's just that I deal with it differently.
Right. Exactly. I think what it is for me, I'll speak only from my own experience. I think there is a point where you just understand, stop expecting it to be stress-free. Stop expecting it to be without problems. Just move right to, holy cow, okay, solve. You know what I mean? Instead of spending those moments stuck in the shock that something really, really went wrong. And it does. It sometimes goes really, really wrong. And I've been in that position, more times than I care to recall. And, what it is, look, just get about fixing it, pick up the phone with that client, have the hard conversation, make the apology, make the plan to fix and repair or replace or redo, and just don't stay muddled in it, right?
I keep a little secret. I keep a folder on my computer and my email. I'm looking at it right now. It's called Inspiration. I put inspirational things in there, but I've also put every single customer complaint or terrible comment that I've gotten in that folder, because I actually find that stuff is a motivator for me,
Wow.
Because I know I know that I will react to those things in the moment, and it might take me 2 or 3 days to get over it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I know that I am not those things. And somebody gave some great advice recently. I'm part of the Entrepreneurs Organization, and I have a forum. And one of my forum mates said he had to come around with the idea that every day he's going to let people down. It's just going to be, who is it today? And I've been kind of just living with that and just, apologizing and saying, like, being straight up, like, I'm sorry. I dropped the ball, or I forgot about that, or I'm sorry you've waited so long. And we're human,
right?
Right. And thank God
right.
we don't have like Yelp or something. I don't know if you guys have Yelp in the States.
Yes,
So thank God we don't have that, and people don't come on and be like, rip us apart. Like, could you imagine I always compare it like, well, at least I'm not a restaurant owner.
Right. Right.
Somebody comes in and doesn't like your apple pie and just says you're a terrible person. Like, at least we don't have to deal with that.
It's so true, isn't it? It is so true. It is so true. But, it's funny because about the comment about your colleague is every day is going to disappoint somebody and he just has to accept it. I think for me, what it is the fine line for me is I don't expect a day if a day goes by without a mistake or a problem, hallelujah. I mean, hallelujah, right? Yeah. But if it doesn't, I'm not as rocked by it anymore, number one. But number two, the immediate evaluation follows. Yes. Why did this happen? If it
How can I fix it?
Right. Well, but even more, like, go back a step further. In other words, if I literally just did not do something to my best, now me and LuAnn are going to have a little conversation about that problem. But if I look and I'm like, you know what? At the moment when you completed that or you put that into motion, that was your best thought, your best work, your best blah, blah, and it didn't work out, then it's like, okay, you know what? Then it's, I'm sorry. This is, let's move on, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But if I can see my hand in it because maybe I decided, I would, stop working at a certain time, or I would not make that extra call or tie that extra loop in, then I just sit there and I'm like, really? Yeah, that's good. Okay. That's okay with you, LuAnn? No, ma'am, not okay. Next time we have to remember this, and not drop that ball. So, but it's interesting. And I want to go back to, you were saying that one of your goals now in building out the team again is looking for that stronger lead designer that could be the person between you and your 4 designers running projects, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I interviewed Laura Umansky from Laura U Interior Design at High Point last April, and she has that. She has Leticia, and she has she's. It was very clear. It's Laura here, then Leticia, and then I think it's 5 leads that she has, 5 senior designers, and it is that exact role that you're looking and you're thinking about now. And from Laura's conversation, it really works very well for them because now Laura doesn't necessarily have to check in with 5 people every day.
Exactly.
Right. She can check in with Leticia, and she knows that Leticia has done her work. Doesn't mean she doesn't have interaction. I'm sure she has meetings that are involve her, blah, blah, blah. But it's an efficiency, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I always look at, I think sometimes we discount because we're small businesses that we have to have sort of small business ideals, but I try to run our company in the same way that somebody who has 100 employees would run their company. Right. We've got structured meetings that have timelines and agendas to them. There are certain expectations from certain people with very clear roles. We really work on efficiencies. And I think that all of that comes into play in terms of like, how do we maximize the minutes in our day to be doing our best work and, putting some of that other work onto somebody else so that we can all do the thing that we need to do for the studio versus getting caught up in things that really aren't the best use of every minute of our day. Right.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. It's really good. Now that's going to be a critical hire for you, right? That person has got to be an amazing firecracker person.
And that's not easy to find. And I think it's because we have such a unique dynamic in the studio. It's like you want somebody that doesn't quite have as much as experience as you, that you can still work with them, but somebody that really bridges that gap of knowledge, is, as you can appreciate, really, as it comes to the really technical stuff, like doing site visits and drawing reviews and really understanding how design works, because we're only as good as really our drawings are, because our drawings are what communicate what needs to be built. And so much of that is technical, and having somebody that has experience with that is really tough to find, especially if they're not already running their own firm, because that's what happens in recessions, right? Is people get laid off, and so you end up with a whole bunch of freelancers.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I would tell you too, I mean, you said something, I don't assume that the person should have a tad less experience than you in order to be willing to work for you. There are a lot of really smart, capable, talented people with years of experience that recognize that having that level of responsibility in a job that you would be outlining for them is what they want, without the name on the checkbook and out. You know what I mean? It could be somebody that has teenagers, right? And just doesn't want a 24/7 thing, which owning your business is. And maybe her days with you, some might be 12-hour days and some might be 8-hour days, but ultimately the name on the door is not that person's, but that doesn't mean that they wouldn't give it the 110%, and they might even appreciate and value it more because they're given a position with such empowerment, right? Yeah.
I really respect it when people understand where they want to be. And going back to Rochelle, who we mentioned earlier, she kind of manages all of our sort of supply chain management and our invoices and accounting. And Rochelle is upfront. She says, I don't want to be the number one person. I want to be the number two person. And that's where she's comfortable, know, and she knows, like, family for her is number one. And so it's not that she's not willing to pull the long hours, but for her, she wants to work 35, 40 hours a week. She still wants to be in more of a senior position. That's what she's great at. But she also understands the limitations too, of like, no, I also don't want your life. Right. And that makes it really easy for me to nurture the relationship, because I have an understanding of what her expectations are and what her limitations are.
Right. And we all need those rock star people that are our most valuable, right-hand man, sort of, that they care as much as you do, but they also are very clear that I don't want to be you. You're nuts.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
So that's awesome. Kimberly is that in our business. She is that for us. She can do, at this point, I would say she can do any single thing that I could do. The only thing she comes to me for now is if she is having a difficulty with a conversation, whether it be a vendor or a client, and it's going to take some finessing of the conversation, or if it's finessing the sale, how, they're asking me to lower price, or they're asking me to do this, and we don't have the margin to do this. What's my conversation going to be like? And then we talk it all through. And that's really at this point about the last mentoring that she needs. The rest of it, she's got it locked down, and she may need that for a while. You know what I'm saying? Which is fine with me, because I love talking about that stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the benefit. I mean, that to me, that's my role. Like, again, it goes back to the mentorship. It's like they're struggling somewhere, you talk it through. Sometimes it's something that I need to step in on, like you said, if it's closing a sale or something. But I actually love it when she comes to me and says, like, I'm not entirely sure how to address this. Right. We kind of hash it out, but then I don't just jump in and do it for her.
Oh, no.
I let her go through the process. And if it doesn't work out, well, then I will take the call with the client. But the first step, we always talk about this. It's like, the principal of the firm, or the CFO, or whoever, or COO, CEO, it's like they should be the last person everybody goes to, right? Yes. So it's like, figure out how to, like, be a problem solver. And then if you've exhausted all options, then let's chat about me stepping in.
Yeah. No, and unfortunately for Kim, I mean, well, fortunately, because it helps her grow faster, quicker, is, WindowWorks, our projects at WindowWorks are not the scope that you do in an interior design firm. So I'm not, her clients don't know me now. right?
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
not even possible. It's not possible for me to step in without completely cutting her knees off in their mind. So
Yes.
she comes and she brainstorms it with me. We talk about the best way to handle it, how to approach it. But she's got to go back in the ring because it would
Yes.
completely undermine her if I
100%.
were to pick up the phone. And so there's not even a thought of me picking up the phone. It's like, you got to do it, sweetie. And I always say to her
Yeah.
when she gets a little hesitant about it, I said, I did this when I was 23 years old with nobody to talk it over. Get going. You got this.
Like, you got this. Get a grip. That's
Get
my new
back in
favorite
the
saying.
ring.
Get a grip. You got this.
Exactly. So, okay. So really interesting. Now tell us about, when you think, well, tell it this next phase of your business, Amanda,
Yes.
is you have leaned into in this last year to Pallet Archives, and it looks so interesting to me. And of course, it looks like a heck of a lot of work has
Sure
gone
was.
into it. But what I love about it, it's work that gets done one time, and then it keeps bringing
Exactly.
you money, right? So first tell everybody what Pallet Archives is, and then I want to pick it apart and ask you some questions about it.
Yeah, for sure. So Pallet Archives is an e-commerce based business, and we offer interior designer curated finishes and materials palettes, which then get shipped right to the client's doors. So as of right now, we've got 35 unique palettes. So, we would have like Scandinavian modern, we have jungle fever, we have sort of a Memphis styled one. And the idea is it's to service the vast majority of clients who may not have the means to hire an interior designer. So it's really sort of targeting the vast majority of people and really democratizing design, making it accessible for people.
Okay. And so the thing about it is that your luxury clients are not confused by this.
No, they're never going to use it. It doesn't cannibalize our current business at all.
Right. They're not
Yeah.
saying, hey, why did I just give you all these design fees when I could have clicked on that package? They want the full experience and the hand
That's
holding
right.
and the service.
Yeah, that's right. And so Palette Archives, again, you and I were chatting about, like any consultant, an interior design consultant or any consultant business, you're kind of only as good as however many hours you work, right? So
Right.
as I go into this next phase of my life, I've been running this company for 10 years now. It's like, how do I free up more time in my day, much like you, to do other projects? I'm in the process of writing a book. We're interested in maybe doing some television opportunities. I've got 2 other potential businesses on the go. So the goal with Palette Archives is really to generate, it's twofold: to generate passive income, because, you create these things sort of once and then you update them, but, and you market them, etc. But it has nothing to do with me spending that one-on-one time with a client. So that's, there's the revenue sort of part of it. And then the other part of it is really just, a personal need to help people who can't afford our services, and to provide them with, designer curated things that I won't use the word guarantees, but, kind of does guarantee that the space is going to look great because we've picked out all those finishes and materials for you.
So when we talk about what's included in it is tile, flooring, carpet, paint colors, wallpaper,
millwork, countertops,
backsplash.
And then the other thing that we haven't launched yet, which is going to be happening here in the fall, is we also did specifications for lighting, plumbing, door hardware, cabinet hardware, and bathroom accessories. This is not a full interior design experience. This is maybe you're working with a contractor, or maybe you're doing some of the work yourself, but you're not running all over the city putting finishes and materials together. Because what most clients may experience over the last 15 years, they always start off the conversation going, I know what I like, I just don't know how to put it all together.
Right.
So Palette Archives solves that problem.
And when we talk about this, what you're doing that's different than anybody that I've come across doing this is you're not putting together a mood board and then a physical list of the items. You're actually putting the items in a box. You're putting a piece of the tile. You're putting a piece of the carpet. You're putting the paint chip in a box.
And it ships right to your door. And then the second part of the business that we're still sort of fleshing out is that you can then order all of those materials from us at a design discount, right? So there's another area of revenue for us, of course, but then also there's an incentive for the clients not to shop you, right? Because I think we all deal with that in the interior design industry. It's like you present this piece of furniture and then somebody goes online and finds it for what they think is cheaper, but they haven't calculated the conversion. They haven't calculated the shipping and duties. They haven't considered sort of what customer service might look like if there's issues. And so this is sort of something we're fleshing out right now, of just being able to go, okay, here's this great product. We've worked with all of these suppliers before. We stand behind their product, and it's going to work for you.
So the nitty gritty of that, you're in Canada. If I'm in the US, and let's maybe back up before I even ask this question. So I like the countertop that's in my mid-century modern box or my Palm Beach box, okay, Palm Springs box. What do? I say to my contractor, tell me what size slab I need, and then I order the countertop from you, and it ships to me from, is that what you're talking about?
You picked like the hardest thing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there's definitely some challenges for sure. So, a better example is like hardwood. Right.
Okay,
so you love the hardwood. Either you take it on and it's your liability to do the correct square footage. But what we do is we want you to work with trades. Like, we think it's important. We're not advocating that people do this work on their own. We'd really prefer that they have trades. But there's a lot of people that say buy a house, they've got $50,000 or $100,000 to renovate it, and so they're like, maybe the husband's handy or somebody has a sister-in-law or something. Right. And so that's a little bit more. Countertops is one of the biggest challenges because, as you know, you need to template them. So our goal is basically to have partners in, major cities where we can say, great, you love this box, go to company XYZ and talk to George there, and he will come out and template your countertops for you.
Okay. All
yeah.
right.
So that's a bit of a work in progress for sure. The shipping component is a bit more challenging for some of the finishes and materials.
Okay. So, but let's go to an easier one. So wallpaper, right?
Yeah.
So somebody likes the wallpaper, then they get their wallpaper guy to tell them how much, and is it a cart buy on your website, or do they have to pick up the phone and call you and say, I need 14 double rolls?
Right now, we just have orders at palletarchives.com. So it's a little bit more what I like to call the beta version. But what we ultimately want to do, and we've been doing some research, is to figure out how to automate all of this. There are online wallpaper companies, as an example, who provide you with some outlines on how, if you're going to measure it, how you're going to do it, put the numbers in. And essentially what that automated form on our end would be is it would spit the PO out to the vendor, who would then provide us with a quote, and that would go back to the client. So those are some of the complexities of the delivering part that we're going to have to work through, because we're really still in that sort of initial startup phase of trying to figure out what the actual issues are.
I'm wondering why add that layer to it when you could just sell these boxes like candy and label them and say that's Taj Mahal, whatever granite, and that's, XYZ wallpaper, go find it. Why are you I mean, I know ultimately to make money, but I mean, it seems like there are a lot of potential places for this to get crazy.
Yeah, and I actually think so. We're going through a bit of a website redesign right now, and it's a really good point. It's something I've been thinking about over the last couple of weeks. Is if we pivot right now and just focus on launching the boxes and really making sure that we're leading in the market, and we're doing that great, and then maybe later on, once we've sort of fleshed out the complexities of it, do that. The only challenge is that we're getting these finishes and materials from our vendors. Ideally, we want them to be purchased from the vendors. So it's a little bit of trying to control our relationship with them, right? And make sure that they don't get shopped. Because if they're going to give us free samples and then you don't actually go out and buy any of that, that's kind of crummy. But, we know that, that's one of the downsides, is that it can be shopped. But you're right. I mean, it could just be finishes and materials. The specifications are on it. The clients can decide if they want to go direct to those people or not. We just we saw an opportunity there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, you'd have to just say to these individual people, look, I'm going to pay you for the samples, but even still, what's their incentive to even have this sampling program for you, even if you were to pay for them, if they're not ultimately going to get the sale?
Exactly.
It's sort of like, I'm not in the memo business, lady. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and when we say
luckily
memos,
enough,
we're talking about a chunk of marble, we're talking about a chunk of
yes.
stone, we're talking about a piece of backsplash. You're not talking about a picture, not talking about a cut sheet.
Yeah, and that's the thing is we kind of wanted to be able to track. That's the other part. Like actually have some measurables and some analytics on how many boxes got sold, what samples, what's selling, who's buying what, right? Because if we simply just send the boxes out into the market, we have no idea if any of those things have ever been used or if anything's ever been done with them. So what we actually have right now is we're doing 4 case studies. So we had 4 like more friends and family that were like, I'm doing a renovation, I'll use Pallet Archives. And so we gave them the box for free with the sort of clause that we want to be able to photograph the process, do an interview with them afterwards, and create a video. So it's really showing people that, you know, if you buy this box and you purchase these materials, your house can look like this. And we opted not to make sure that we wanted no customization because we can't then control what your space is going to look like if you start swapping finishes and materials out.
Right. But you're not saying that you're just selling a box. If they screw it up, they screw it up, right?
Yeah. We kind of want to be able to guarantee it though. Like, and I think it's more of a earning the trust of those potential clients. Like you can buy a box, but then you're still like, ugh, what is this going to look like? But if we've shown you testimonials of, you know, a dozen other people that have used the box and used the materials and you see beautiful photos and videos, I think that is you're much more inclined to trust us.
Yes.
And you're much more inclined to be like, nope, I want those exact finishes that you sent me because I don't want to screw this up.
Right.
And like buying a house is one of the single largest investments that most people make in their lifetime. And yet it always surprises me that people wander all over the city picking finished materials. They have no idea if they're going to work together. and then they wonder why their house isn't selling. You can tell when a house has had an interior designer engaged.
Yes.
And yes, there's a few magical fairies that are not designers that have just like crazy amazing taste, better than I do. But, you know, to me it's about protecting your investment.
Right. No, it's true. And the simple fact is there is that whole level of the marketplace that forget, I don't have to run around town and try and figure out like if this backsplash that I'm seeing here matches the piece of quartz that I saw in the stone yard over there. Forget the people that know enough to go around and look at it. There's people that just don't have the slightest idea where to begin. And
they're just like, I have no idea what my aesthetic is. I just need somebody to tell me what to do.
Right. And, you know, we built a house, 25 years ago, and it was not a custom. It was a custom build in that everything in it I selected, but I didn't buy the property, hire the architect, hire the builder, right? So it was like a street was going up, and this builder bought the whole street, and he put the houses up, right? But he said, okay, so here's your series of appointments. You can sit with this tile company and pick all of your tile. And the thing is, if I had not come from, 17 years of being surrounded and going to the sheer number of homes that I had been to in my lifetime, I always remember thinking to myself, if I was like an accountant and I sat in an office my entire life, you're expecting me to have a conversation with the tile guy who's not talking to my kitchen and cabinet guy, who's not talking to my floor guy, and I'm supposed to be the hub in the middle of that, right? But that's what it was, and
that happens all the time.
Yes.
And I look at it, and you see it happening with like a lot of developers and builders. You're almost doing your client a disservice by doing that. It's overwhelming for them. Like you said, you were running around to all these different stores, and it's like, but you're not allowed to take a sample with you. So like, you might pick out something you like, but how do you know they all work together? You just don't.
Right. It's the truth. And it was funny because I do remember that each one of them saying, "Oh, you can't take that," and I was like, "Stop! I'm taking it." Like,
and it's that's the whole point. I just see all these things together and go like, do these whites match? Does this flooring complement the cabinet? It's just crazy. And I think we see it happening. Like people used to go into a furniture store and sit on a sofa and buy it, and now people are buying, like Article is a perfect example. People are buying an Article sofa off of Instagram, not a store, not a website, off of Instagram, right? You're seeing a promoted ad. You're like, everybody's busy now. Everybody's taking on too much stuff. Like that's just the nature of our world right now. And you're like, I need a sofa. It's in my price point. Click buy, ships to my house. Done. On to the next.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, luckily, Article's a good quality sofa, and it'll be fine because they're our sponsor, Amanda.
Well, LuAnn, that was not intentionally dropped, but as a perfect example, I mean, you're great. That's what I'm saying is people are buying that. That's what I'm saying is the market is going towards like Article is doing such a great job. Again, companies like a West Elm or whatever, right? Like people are just sponsoring things online now, and like I buy so much stuff online. So that's part of Pallet Archives too. We're understanding now that people are going online. They're buying their sofas. They're buying their skincare products. They're buying their exercise stuff. I mean, that is kind of where the market is going.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And you're smart to figure out a way through it, and you're into maybe leverage it a little bit and capitalize on it, because as you said at the beginning of this section of the interview, if the only way you can make money is by being in front of a client, that's a tough way because it limits the amount of money you can make. Now you are already leveraging that by having 4 other designers that can be in front of the client, but still that's limiting. What do you got? 50 designers? Yeah. Well, you could. I mean, Joni Banks does, but I mean, Joni Vanderslice does with Banks Design. But still, it's like it's a whole nother headache too.
It's a whole other thing, and to be honest, the margins on consultant fees in a creative industry are not huge, right? Like right. Unless you become like Kelly Wearstler, and you can have an hourly rate that is sort of that celebrity designer status, or you can have fees like that are really high, and people are coming to you specifically because you're Kelly Wearstler. Right. The rest of us have to go, how do we make this accessible to our market? What is the sort of market standard and what people are expecting over here? But yeah, you're not making money unless you're sitting down in front of a client. So I think as we get older and as we learn more about our business and have more things we want to explore, we have to figure out like, how do we still do a bit of that because we love it, but figure out how to make more of a passive income.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell me a little bit about the logistics of it. So you have 35 different boxes. They're very, very appealing online when you look at your website, by the way. They really are beautifully laid out, and you just feel like, I want one of those, And but the question is, yes, well done. But the question is, are they sitting all made up in a warehouse and the order comes through and it's happening right out of your studio and you guys are sending them out? Or are they built when somebody orders them? Are they built and packaged when somebody orders them? Are you subcontracting that out to a different facility in a different distribution process? How are you actually doing it?
LuAnn, I feel like you and I need to sit down and just like do this together. So right now, just because, it's a startup and so, our actual sales are limited, we're just doing it in studio, but we have everything sort of packaged up and ready to go, right? Mm-hmm. So we have the assets and the collateral. We've got some samples in the office so that if we get an order, our goal is to very much be like Amazon Prime. We want to be able to like have a client make an order and literally it goes out the next day. So that's our goal right now, is just doing it in the studio. But a long-term goal absolutely would probably be to drop ship them, whether or not they're on Amazon Prime and they're sort of pre-packaged and ready to go. But until we have a little bit more data and analytics, as an example, Jungle Fever probably is not going to sell as much as Scandinavian Modern, right? So it's like, until we actually have some numbers to work with, pre-packaging those up and having all of that sort of inventory sitting here and taking up space and having to pay for that, we're just trying to keep the business
lean.
As lean as it's lean, and we're just working on our MVP. So like, what's our minimum viable product right now so that we can actually get proof of concept and then go towards investors and say, hey, we have X amount, like we've sold 1,000 of these organically, or we sold 100 of them organically.
You got to go on Shark Tank with it.
I know. I almost did. And my husband really loves Shark Tank.
I do too.
But one of the big things we noticed on Shark Tank is they do want to see more proof of concept and they want to see some revenue. So I actually do think we will, because maybe I'm biased, but I do think that this is something that's really interesting, that's really helpful. Like it's something like the facts of like 55% of people each year in Canada and the US, because I've obviously done my research, are renovating each year. And these are people that that are not hiring designers. Their budgets are only maybe around like, $10,000 to $12,000, but they're slowly working on their house every single year. That is a huge market.
Yes.
E-commerce is a huge market, and interior design is a growing market. I mean, look at all the television shows around interior design. People love interior design.
No, I mean, you're two things. You're exactly right. I believe there's a market for this because, you take my own daughters, they have both grown up in this industry, like just hearing the conversations, having to walk on job sites, yada, yada, yada. But neither one of them are in a position where they're going to hire Sandra Funk. They're not going to call my friend and say, hey, you know what I mean? But at the same time, they know enough to be dangerous, right? They know enough to know that. And to just
millennials love design.
Yes.
They love it. And they love having a personality in their homes. They're just, they're into it.
Yes. Yeah. And to your point is you're not taking business away from yourself or any other designer. You're tapping into a market that is not going to do it anyway.
Served.
Right.
Yeah. They're not even being served right now. Because that was one of my biggest concerns is, I'm a big advocate for design education, and it was something that I had to grapple with, and I kind of had to talk it out with a few people, is I don't want to undercut or discount the significance and importance for interior designer. If you're doing a large custom home, Pallet Archives is probably not the solution for you. But if you're doing, a moderately simple sort of renovation, and, again, like you said, your daughters would be our demographic.
Right.
They would be like, okay, I can buy a box for a couple $100s and then do this renovation and hire my own trades and save some money, but still know that I'm protecting my investment in the same way that I get insurance, right? It's insurance to make sure that your house sells and that those materials hold up and it's good quality.
Mm-hmm. And how did you arrive at the price point of $337? Did you have you maneuvered that at all? Did you tried at one point, tried another point, or did you just come out at $337 and that's the number that works?
So it's interesting because you're obviously on the US version. So it's $495 Canadian.
Okay.
But we are actually we're doing some testing right now, and we're actually going to drop the price. We want to make it even more accessible for people. So our goal is right now is to get Pallet Archives into the hands of as many people as possible to really get some feedback and test the market. So, it's approximately right now like $500 Canadian. So we're actually going to drop it to about probably about $300 Canadian. Which means for like you guys in the US, that's like $25. I'm just joking, but
I'm like, what?
No, with the conversion, like if it's 300 Canadian, I mean, it's probably going to be around like 200 American, maybe 225-ish, right? So like really accessible. The idea is like if you're scrolling through Instagram and you see this like beautiful space and this beautiful palette, that you're not going to think too long about it. You're going to be like, this is a low risk investment.
Price to sell.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I thought the $337 was price to sell because I just literally sat there and said to myself, if either of my daughters called me up and said, we were going to spend all day Saturday and Sunday and you were going to cart me around to all of your favorite vendors for tile and this and that and the other thing, or there's this thing for $337, I'd be like, buy it.
Like, done,
you know what I mean?
Time is money.
Right, because I can do that with them. I can't do it as well as you can or anybody else, but I can do it good enough for them to get it done. I've done it in a dozen houses of my own over the years, yada, yada. But I'd be like, matter of fact, I'll buy it for you. You just, what I could do with my 8 hours, what I could make in 8 hours instead of spending $337. And I also would have that extra layer, literally, even me who, look, there's not one point I've never pretended I know what you guys know, but I have worked side by side with you guys for 40 years, right? And so my point is that even me, having not sat behind a desk in an accounting firm my entire life and seen all the beautiful combinations that you guys have created and I've been witness to, yada, yada, I still would be like, and there's a little insurance policy there that this is really going to look good, and they're not going to look at me and say, Mom, that backsplash looks stupid with that countertop.
And one of our goals, too, is we are going to add it so that if you want to buy multiple boxes, that you'll get a discount on those, because I think that's the other thing is
bathroom, kitchen, right?
Yeah. we had somebody that bought 2 boxes because they liked 2 and they wanted to see what that looked like. So, that's in Canadian dollars, they spent $1,000. That's still cheaper than, say, them hiring an interior designer to do finishes and materials. And, to be honest, most interior designers just don't have time to take on those really small projects. They end up costing more money than they're worth. And, it can be a distraction. So it's a really great way to sort of bridge that gap.
Right. No, I agree, because I just had a conversation with a coaching client the other day, and she just said, what this client wants me to do is just so not worth my time. It's like they don't understand. By the time I go in and out of the tile shop, by the time I go in and out of here to put this bathroom together for them, when I know they don't ultimately want me to oversee and project manage, they just want me to put the finishes together. She said, the number of hours I got to charge them, they're going to look at me and say this is crazy. And I said, in that regard, I said, you got to give them your price. They're grown up. They'll either take it or they won't, but don't worry about it. You don't lower your price because it seems crazy to charge that price. I said, is it really going to take you 12 hours to go in and out and do all these things? She said, yes, it is. I said, then put your invoice out for 12 hours and stop whining about it. That's it.
Well,
and that person buys it or they don't.
Yeah, it could be $2,500 when you're all said and done. And then the client's like, well, my bathroom renovation's only costing $10,000. So that seems
that's
crazy.
Right, sweetie. So go ruin it yourself if you want.
The hours are the hours. Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. Yeah. And so, so I, look, this is a brainchild of you. I think everybody is entitled to figure out how to diversify and make the most money they can. I 100% agree that your target market is the client that wasn't going to hire a designer anyway. And what you've done is you can see the hours that have gone into it. This isn't just throwing a couple of samples in a box here. I
hired somebody full time, and that's all she did, literally 40 hours a week, was develop pallets for 6 full months.
Whoa. That's a huge financial investment, Amanda.
Yeah. It's huge. And we also, hired a creative company to do all the branding. And I just hired another company a couple days ago to redo the website and sort of finish off some of our assets and stuff. So it's a big, we're going to easily be into it for probably $100,000, but I really want to set us up to be in a position, because I feel so strongly that this company has legs, that when we go to market, we're fully ready for whatever that is, whatever that looks like.
Well, good for you. I hope it works.
Me too.
Yes. I mean, you have probably 6 months or a year before you'll know fully, right, how it's working. And then maybe, and you're right about Shark Tank, by the way. They're going to eat you up and spit you out if you're like, I sold 8. Yeah, they're like, no, come back. Don't come back. So, but I also fully believe you're going to be the kind of lady that Barbara Corcoran really likes. I'm just going to tell you right now.
Oh, well, good. I'll mention that to her when I see her.
Yes, you do that. You tell her LuAnn said.
LuAnn said you'd like me, so please invest with me. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, she does. She really favors any entrepreneur that really, just has an idea, has energy around it, can show some proof of concept, she's my favorite shark. I love her.
Well, maybe I'll play to her when I'm on the show, but maybe we'll need a follow-up conversation. You can prep me for it.
Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, well, you get a hashtag smart lady, Amanda. Just going to tell you.
Back at you.
So you know what? Thank you so much for joining us. I would love for you to keep me on your radar, and a year from now, if you give us your update on the growth of Pallet Archives, it's quite possible that you might pivot, only because I know you're a smart lady and you're not going to just grind it into the ground if it doesn't seem to be working. But there's no reason to think it won't. I'm not in commenting in that way. I just know that, I can hear you. You're tracking it. You're thoughtful. You're understanding that let's, prove concept and so forth. So I'm very curious to see a year from now where you are with it. You have to come back and tell us, okay?
Yeah, we'll tell you all about our guerrilla marketing strategies. I always go back to the fact that Airbnb took 3 years of just grinding, and the co-founders were knocking on people's doors and things like that. You sometimes have to get down with your product and your new business and figure out how you're going to make it work. So
that's it.
I'd love to give you an update and let you know where we are in a year.
That's it. Sounds like a date. Thank you so much for joining me today, Amanda.
Thank you.
Before I share my thoughts about this episode, let's just say again how awesome Article.com is and how easy they make it for you to order mid-century Scandinavian-inspired furniture online, just like Amanda said. So easy to shop, so easy to order, and quick, easy delivery. In fact, you can still order and have your client's room all zhuzhed up by the holidays, all right? Go to welldesigned.article.com. Place your order now and be the hero for your client. They'll be so happy that the room can be all ready for the holidays. So that's welldesigned.article.com. Okay, my thoughts on this show. Do you know what I think is the most surprising, the most compelling, and frankly, the most hopeful few sentences in this conversation with Amanda, especially if you are struggling with owning your CEO-ness? Okay? Amanda said that she still sometimes questions herself. She said, why does she think she has any business making these decisions or advising other people on what they should do? You heard her. You heard how smart she is. She is truly a #smart lady. You heard all of her accomplishments at the introduction to the show. And she, despite all of this, is literally just grasping, or I shouldn't say grasping, stepping into. That's what it is. She's stepping into her strength, her identity as an entrepreneur. And I'm going to say on reflection, when I listened to this show in editing, I realized I should have pushed her back on one more point that I caught when I listened to it. She was willing to call, like what she said was, I have a hard time saying entrepreneur, so I've decided that I can call myself a creative entrepreneur. And I just want to say, Amanda, you're listening, potato, potato. Okay? Potato, potato. You are an entrepreneur and you are one of the best and finest examples in 500 interviews that I've done. You're a heck of a businesswoman. You're a force to be recognized. Okay? So entrepreneur, creative entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, you got it, lady. Okay? Now, what about you listening to the show? Do you have moments of doubt sometimes of wondering if you are up to owning your own firm? What do you learn from this? That it's okay, right? That we're all human beings and we all human beings complete with the crazy voices in our head that play with us, right? So take some inspiration from Amanda. Be inspired, number one, by all that she has accomplished, okay? So put some things on your to-do list, okay? Then be inspired by the design firm that she has created and also be inspired by how she is looking to the future and she's making plans for ways to make money other than through her design projects. She's looking ahead and seeing what's the next step in her entrepreneurial journey. All right. And I'll just tell you, if Amanda has random crazy pants thoughts about whether or not she's truly an entrepreneur, that just shows that you're entitled to have a moment every now and again too. All right. But what do you have to do? What do you have to do when that goes through your head? We know what Amanda does now. Now Amanda, as she said, she goes, you know what? I just sit there and I get it. She has had enough experience and she has enough legitimate, objective accomplishments that she says to herself, nope, I can do this. I am doing this. All right. But how does she get there? She gets there by taking accountability, by being responsible, about reevaluating. She said as she goes through a growth period, you know, all of a sudden there's people that are not satisfied and the phone rings with the unhappy clients. That's she said, when you grow to that another level, it happens in every business. When you grow from one level to another, it stresses your systems. But what does Amanda do? She said she sits down, she takes stocks, they reevaluate their processes, she reevaluates the players in her team and are they all working in their right spot, right? She takes action. That is how you own your CEO-ness, okay? When you're feeling that little insecurity, look at it. Look directly at it. What is it that I'm feeling a little insecure about? And go address it. All right. That's how you get through it. Okay. Like she said, she addresses a gap in her process. She takes a system that's not working now that they have more projects and she fixes it and she redoes it. And I promise you, when you do that, you feel so good. There is that little moment of feeling anxiety. There's that moment of, oh my gosh, people aren't happy. The system isn't working. But when you push through and you do it, you come out feeling so in control. You're feeling like a rock star, feeling like the CEO that you are. Okay? But you have to decide. You really do. And I know that you can do it. All right? Decide to be excellent. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks, your resource for custom window treatments and awnings. To learn how we can help you on your next interior design project, go to www.windowworks-nj.com. And if you're interested in working with me on your business, either through masterminds or one-on-one coaching, or you want to know how to get my book, The Making of a Well-Designed Business, or you just want to know what's going on in the podcast land and where I'm going to be, all of that is found at LuAnnNigara.com. Thank you so much. Have an excellent day.